Hello, welcome back to another review from me. Hmm. Oh, anyway, I'm a little weird sometimes. But today's review is another great new CD that came out. It's coming out on vinyl very soon as well. But it is Szjnt, the Calf. Now, I can't say enough good stuff about this. Everybody's gonna, and I've read everything online about Josh isn't there. Josh isn't there. I'm not interested. Blah 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 blah. Well, and I think the problem it comes from the last singer that they had that replaced Josh did not live up to people's expectations of a vocalist for the band, such as the Great Saint. He's a good vocalist. Brian Phil Miller was a good vocalist. Don't get me wrong. He sang with Randy Piper's Animal. However, when he got in with Saint, for some reason, he lost that bite in his voice. That if he would have had that when he was in Saint, I don't think people would have had one issue with Brian. Um, I think Brian failed the Saint fans, honestly. He didn't give them what they wanted. He gave them something different and it really wasn't anything Saint fans wanted. Broad as the Gate is a decent album, not a great album, not a good album, a decent album in my opinion. It's probably, I would say it's the second weakest album in their bunch. The most weakest being that little EP called A Perfect Life or something like that, 4 songs with the guy who ultimately became their drummer. That's another story for another time. But anyway, this album is from. Excuse me, I dropped my CD. This album is from. It came out last December through the band. You went to saintsite.com and you could have got a copy of this in December. I think it was started being carried by the other outlets early January of 2020. So technically the release is probably a 2019, but everybody's going to call it 2020, which is just fine because I think it came out like only a matter of a couple of days before Christmas anyway. But anyway, what this album represents is Saint's return to glory completely. I mean, yeah, the singer isn't exactly the Rob Halford-ish kind of singer that Josh was, but this guy, his name is Dave. He can definitely hold his own. Yeah, David Nelson is his name. I'm sorry, I'm a little unfamiliar with his singer or anything about where he came from or anything like that. All I know is that on the back, he's the guy in the middle, and his name is David Nelson. Um, that's about all I know about the guy, other than he is a very good singer and he did a very fine job on this album, um, which I think is something that all Saint fans should at least give a chance to. I don't care if you think that Josh should come back. That's irrelevant if you think he should come back. That's not this album. This album is this guy. This guy does a kick butt job. Okay, I mean he's got it. He's got the pipes. He's got the tone. He's got the grit. He's got some. That's something I don't think Josh had either. Was grit. This guy has grit. I like that. And you know he uses it sparingly, which is great too because it gives those songs that little extra bite that it needs. Um, you know, I the I'm just flustered about this album a little bit, and not in a good way because I don't really know how much more praiseful I can be of this album. The song "The Calf," very good song. It starts off a little wonky to me. That little intro that they did on it, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. You get over it real quick because it's very short, but I get hung up on some things that are that are insignificant to the overall picture. But yeah, that's me with any intros. I'm an anti-intro kind of guy. Really, I don't like intros. Um, they annoy me. They're to me they're as useless as an instrumental. That's another whole story altogether for a different day, different time. But if you like that kind of stuff, more power to you. I love you. But anyway, at least it's attached to the song, and it doesn't ruin the song for me. Unlike, say, that intro to Terror Woman by Rainbow, that annoys the out of me like you wouldn't believe. I've learned how to do uh, music editing, and I've been able to, luckily, snip that off. I'm not going to do that to this though, because it does meld well with the song. So, but it is good. Anyway, the song itself, "The Calf," is very much it's a really good, strong song. Is it a great song? It's getting there. There's more to come, so I'll come back to that one. Another Day. Now that's a perfect Szjnt song. I can't praise that one enough. That is Szjnt, like you've heard before. I mean, it's got all that classic rhythmic stylings and vocal stylings of a Szjnt song. It's perfect. It's what everybody should. If you think of Szjnt, it doesn't matter who the vocalist is for the band. As soon as you hear the song, you'll be, oh, that's Szjnt. You'll know it's Szjnt because it has that Richard Lynchian style writing to it, that classic style that he did back in on like Too Late for Living or something like that. It's very, very much there. Yeah, I like it. Psalm 23, another great song. Little bit newer of a vibe, but it's still great. I mean, it's still very much a Richard Lynch kind of song. I don't know. It's sort of like the next level of Richard Lynch, though. Which is what this should be all about. So, I like it. Rise was one that I had a little harder time digesting as a Szjnt song. It doesn't have anything that really says, hey, this is a Szjnt song. it just kind of, it's a good song, but it doesn't really have that Szjnt quality to it for some reason. Maybe it's a very good song, but it's sort of like, when you think back, I'm gonna give it in a broad sense. I'm going to give it the difference between the Metallica Black Album and, say, Metallica Master of Puppets. Okay, you still get that vibe. The Black Album would be more like the Saint of Yore. Okay, and then and the Master of Puppets would be like the next level, right? Yeah, but yet if you put the two side by side, you'd be like, is that still the same band? Because one has way more technical stuff going on musically, and the other one is just more da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like I hope you get what I'm saying. It's sort of like one is just more the Szjnt style songs are more just Judas Priestian, very rhythmic, very and this would be more like Dream Theater or something like that, with being played by this band. It's great. It works. I love it. I don't hate it. It's a great song. It just doesn't have that Szjnt quality for me. It's still a great song. I'm not gonna say otherwise, because that would be a lie. And then of course, you got the next song, which is Fine Line, which probably, in my opinion, is I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like that song in contrast to the rest of them. It's still a good song. It's another one of those where it's a good song, but it just seemed to be lacking something for me. I don't know what it is. I listened to it. It's not a skippable track, at least, so I will give it that. But it is pretty close. Sometimes, when you go from Rise, you just don't want to hear whatever they're offering on Fine Line right afterwards. Maybe it's just the track listing. Maybe if I play around with it and make my own playlist version, it might work out better. Because it is not a bad song. It just doesn't fall where it's located on the actual CD. Seems to be a little bit like disjointed. It's sort of like putting a ballad in the middle between two thrash songs. Some people don't like it that it doesn't. Some people, oh, that's great because it mellows you out a little bit or something. This doesn't really mellow you out. This is more sort of like putting an Enter Sandman style song in between two Through the Nevers or something like that. I don't know. It's very, it's a good song, but it just seems a little bit out of place on the CD. However, that song aside, well, the next song, absolutely my favorite song off this album. Absolutely. Stormy Night. I don't know. That song grabbed me. Initially, I thought it was going to be some, when I first saw it, I'm sorry, but when I first saw it, I thought it was some sort of Peanuts reference, Once Upon a, or, on a dark and stormy night, or whatever, when Snoopy does that typing thing. That's what I thought this was. And it kind of is elemental of that, but it's so much better. This is, this song is my favorite on the album, Stormy Night, and it's very much straight up another one like Another Day. It's a straight up Szjnt song. You hear it, you'll be like, oh, that's Szjnt. Who's that singing? Yeah, you'll be like, wait, is that Szjnt? And you'll only say that to yourself because it's Dave Nelson singing, not Josh singing. But when you listen to the song, you'll be like, that's a Szjnt song. That is so so much a Richard Lynch style song. It almost hurts. And I really like the song a lot. I think it's my favorite. It's my top. It's my top 2 on this album. I would say it's my second favorite. I'll get to my favorite later. The next song is what is it called? Fragile. Yeah, Fragile. I'm going to say Fraggle, like Fraggle Rock, but no, it's sorry. It's Fragile. And that's another great song too. That one just, it reminds me so much of myself at times. It's kind of scary. It's sort of like, you wrote that song about me? Why? No. Anyway, it just hit me in the feels, Then of course, they got Hell to Pay, which, what is with these Christian bands wanting to suddenly throw the word hell out there? Like, I don't know. No more hell to pay. Now we got hell. Wait, no more hell to pay or hell to. That's a Striper joke. Anyway, oh yeah, and Brad had hell no, we won't go. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and being not used to those particular wordsmithing boundaries pushed in Christian music. Could be. I don't know. But anyway, the song "Hell to Pay" on here is very much a. It's a very good song. It's another one that, I don't know. It's one of the. I'm thinking this is one that the new singer co-wrote with Richard. Actually, it's the new guitar player and the new singer, along with Richard Lynch, wrote this one. The new guitar player, his name, well, he's not so new anymore, but his name is Matt Smith. He's been there a couple of years, a couple of years anyway, I think. He's not as new as Dave is. I know that. And of course, the other guitar player is the old stalwart Jerry Johnson. That guy's been around since their resurrection in 2004. He played on In the Battle, and I think he's been on every album except for The Mark. I think it was the only one he has not played on since 2004. But anyway, Jerry Johnson is, he's actually one of my favorite guitar players of the modern Christian era as well. He has a lot of feel to him, and a lot of Shankerisms to him. I don't know. A lot of people say, where do you hear that? Well, I don't know. I get that vibe when I listen to some of the way he's played. It's not quite as sweeping like Schenker does, but when Schenker was, nailing the stuff in the 80s, especially in the Macaulay Schenker era, more so than probably the actual MSG era, the original era. He was attacking the guitar with a little more fervor, and it's actually ultimately what made me a fan of Schenker was listening to the Perfect Timing album. And then the following 2 albums were just as good, in my opinion. So, and he worked well with Robin McCauley, which made it a very unique. Robin brought something out in him as a guitar player that I didn't hear before, and I haven't really heard much since from Schenker. But that version of Michael Schenker is how I relate Jerry Johnson to. He's got that really cool, smooth, debonair attack to the solos, and rhythms. His rhythm playing is probably some of the best I've heard, ever. not just in Christian music, definitely not just in Szjnt, but ever. I like Jerry Johnson. I love I just love the way the guy plays. And then, of course, Matt Smith is the technical wizard. Now I can see why they brought him in. Jerry does a great job at soloing, don't get me wrong, but Matt just took it to the next level. He's the Yngwie Malmsteen, kind of guy. He's got a little classical feel to his playing, and, he's very much a, Aparicio style player. I don't really get that from Jerry, but I get that more from Matt, which makes them a great team. I hope that they stick around and they're actually able to sit. I'd like to see the two of them get together and write a Szjnt song. Just my opinion. I think it would just completely blow people. It just completely blow people away if just the two of them did, without any real interruption with somebody else, adding their 2 cents to it. Even if it's Richard Lynch, I love Richard Lynch's playing, and he is Szjnt. So. But I still would like to hear just those two just somehow just get together and just write something that Szjnt records. That'd be awesome to hear. Even if they don't record it, maybe they can do it as a solo or something, side project. But anyway, they got Jared Nolan is on drums, and Jared Nolan has been around since the Hellblade era. He produced the drums on Hellblade. He didn't play them on that one. Bill Borst played drums on that one, but Jared was the producer, and he did such a great job producing Bill Borst on that one. Everybody raved about how great the drums sound, and they sound fantastic on Hellblade. Now, they've sounded just as good on every release since Hellblade too, but Jared Nolan has been the drummer since Hellblade, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure I have them. I'd have to go look at the other CDs, but I think he's been the drummer since basically that point in time. And he's a great drummer. Very solid, and he produces them very well. And I think that's something that Szjnt lacked in the early days they had decent they had good drummers, technically speaking, playing wise, but I don't think they captured them right until they got Jared in to produce the drums on Hellblade, and then they realized, oh wait, that's what we need. We need somebody that actually knows how to produce drums. And it worked. I mean, that he just brought out that great punchy drum sound that had been lacking in Szjnt up until that point. And now he is their drummer, and this album is no different than anything that they've done since Hellblade. Maybe not quite as canonous. I think the thunderous canon production style that was on Hellblade and Desperate Night is a little bit more subdued on this one, but it's okay. It works. It still sounds, tone-wise and production-wise, I think it still sounds far better to the earlier stuff that they did. Just on the drum level. And actually all over. I mean, the guitars are really awesome on this one, too. Then we got The Fall, which is a good song. Another good Szjnt-styled song that, I like it a lot. It's a very solid song. It's another day, and stormy night, fragile. I don't know, not so much fragile, but more stormy, more of the another day vibe. Very good song, very good, strong song. I like it a lot. Richard Lynch never fails to disappoint, in my opinion. At least not when he has a good singer that can pull it off. This guy can pull it off. And then my favorite track on this album, believe it or not, my favorite track is the very last track on this album. It's called God is God. And it's a Matt Smith tune, showing off all his glorious songwriting abilities. And the singer, Dave Nelson, shows off what he can do as a songwriter. It put the two of them together to make the heaviest track I think Saints ever recorded. I mean, it is heavy. It is. You wouldn't have heard this on previous Saints albums, but it is no. It is. It still very well fits on this album. You know, this album isn't very overly diverse, which is a good thing. It's a very solid album from start to finish. But this last song, just like, okay, you've heard the album, now we're just going to blow your mind, basically. And that's what they did. You know, it's sort of like, you know, you had a really good ride for 9 songs. Well, we have one more up our sleeve for you. And then that one just pummels you over the head. And that's this song. God is God. Just, I mean, the message is awesome, but the music just pummels it. It reminds me of the way Dale Thompson writes. You know, just like, you know, it's just right there in your face. Yeah. So, but this album, you know, I'm very proud to say that I own this. I've got it's a trifold digipack. Now, I am not a fan of digipacks. That is something that I cannot get stressed enough. Something happens, like you ding a corner, you drop something on it, it dents the cover, or God forbid, you set it on something and you try to wipe it off and it sticks forever. You know, I mean, that would happen with a booklet too, but this is a cover. That means you got to almost handle it with kid gloves so it does not get damaged at all. You know, I mean, luckily for me, it so far has, you know, weathered the storm a little bit. I got a little ding here in the corner from where I dropped on the floor just a little bit ago. Yeah, right. You know, I'm not an overly perfectionist, so that doesn't bother me a great deal. But I know some people, they be, oh, I need a new one, you know, and you know, if it was in a jewel case, you wouldn't need it. They wouldn't have even bothered it, you know. I can understand the reason for doing digipacks from a financial standpoint. You know, you're trying to make a little money off of a CD. Yeah, you got to make money to, you know, support the cost of recording and the packaging and all this other stuff, you know. And it's not cheap, you know. So I can understand, you know, you wanting to do it, but then at the same time, you get a damaged digipack, you don't want to show it to anybody. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things, you know. I mean, if the jewel case cracked, you could replace the jewel case. You can go on Amazon and buy new jewel cases. Oh, this new perpetual paranoia. I put this in another video, so we'll talk about that later. But yeah, back to this. I mean, other than being a digipack, you know, and people, you know, I cannot stress enough. No, Josh Kramer is not on this album. Josh Kramer is not on this album. David Nelson is. David Nelson is the next best thing to Josh Kramer, in my opinion. Skip Brian Phil Miller, whatever his name was. He wasn't meant for Szjnt. This guy is. This guy, if you were to replace Josh with anybody, this is the guy I probably would have picked myself. You know, he moves Szjnt into a little bit of a slightly different, more aggressive direction. Good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's slight. It's not like he's out there doing, you know, death growls or, you know, guttural vocals. He's not that at all. He just brings I think a little bit of a bluesier vibe to his voice that Saints always could have used at some point. And I feel that they were lacking that with Josh. Now Richard did an album called Szjnt did an album called Crime Scene Earth. The original version of that, Richard Lynch sang on. I think almost all the songs. Josh only sang on I think 3 or 4 of the original songs on that album. But the Richard Lynch songs, this guy sounds more like Richard Lynch, you know, and than Josh Kramer. But he can hold notes like Josh Kramer, whereas Richard struggled with that. But so this is if you want a good bridge vocalist between Richard Lynch's voice and Josh Kramer's, I would recommend this guy. This guy is a perfect bridge. He can pull off both with practical ease. And So, I don't know if they're going to play live or not. That remains to be seen. I would hope that they do. That they have some things cooking up their sleeve, because they got five members of the band now, and they're the strongest they've been in years, in my opinion. And I just think that Szjnt really needs your support. They need to keep going. If you ever, and if you are stuck on Josh, if you ever want to see the guy come back, I think you have a better chance if the band stays active than if the band went away, right? I mean, if Szjnt just disappeared because you refused to support a non-Josh Kramer version, I think you're going to lose out. You're going to lose out one of the best bands in the Christian, community. And I don't want to see that happen. I want to see you support it. I want to see people support Dave Nelson as the new singer. He's great. He's not Brian Phil Miller, which is an excellent thing to say. I mean, I know I hope I'm not hurting anybody's feelings about Brian Phil Miller, but I don't think he was. If Brian would go back to what I said before, if Brian would have sang like he did in Randy Piper's band, I don't think anybody would ever have a problem with him in Szjnt. But he changed so much vocally, and when he did Szjnt from that stuff, and I don't think it worked. He didn't let out those nice screams that he had back in the day. If he did that, I think it would have worked out fine. But unfortunately, for whatever reasons and decisions were made, they were made, to not do that. I think that's what hurt his tenure in the band. But Dave, they brought it back. He does some good screams on this album. He does some good, high note stuff. He does a lot of mid-tempo-y stuff on here as well. Like I said, I think if you were to have another vocalist besides Josh, it would be this guy. I can't say that enough. But anyway, I'm going to end this video on that note. Go out and buy the calf. Go to SyntSite.com. You can pick it up from Richard himself. Or I believe Boone's Overstock also has this. And I believe Rox Records, or their Christian metal distribution site, has some copies of this as well. So you have like a few different outlets to go pick this up. And I would recommend you doing so. I don't think you would be disappointed. If you're a Szjnt fan, you will not be disappointed. I can guarantee it. If you're a fly-by-night Szjnt fan, well, that's the people that I'm trying to reach here, because I'm going to tell you right now, this is an excellent album, and it's well worth your time and money to go out and get. So, with that being said, cheers.